Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to Central News for Friday the 25th of April, Anzac Day. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller, and today marks 100 years since the start of World War I. Tonight on Central News, in an Anzac Day special, we're bringing you our feature from the Tauranga Air Show, where Hilary met some pilots who fly planes that were used 100 years ago in the war. She also spoke with one of our most recognised war heroes and new servicemen who compared the aircraft of old with the new.
So tell me about the Sopwith Camel.
The Sopwith Camel is my favourite World War I airplane to fly. It has an amazing service record, amazing performance, just a great fighter, 2 forward-firing Vickers guns, rotary engine which makes it really manoeuvrable. Just a delight to fly. I mean, you saw it.
How was it flying today? I mean, it's quite windy.
It's a bit sporting today. Normally we wouldn't fly them in this kind of wind, but we have a lot of room here. The runway is quite large, big open field. We're okay with that. Yeah.
Because the engine actually stops in this plane, doesn't it?
You throttle this airplane with the ignition, so I can run the engine at full speed, half speed, quarter speed, or eighth speed. So that you hear me turning it on and off to control the speed of the engine, which is absolutely crazy by today's standards. I mean, they stopped designing engines like that after the First World War. Yeah, so these engines, the rotary engine, was a unique bit of technology. They spun the whole engine to keep it cool. They didn't have the metallurgy to develop materials that would withstand the heat. So by spinning the engine, it's sort of its own fan. And it has a unique total loss oil system. It uses castor oil for a lubricant, and it's about 6 pints an hour overboard. So you just spread it into the atmosphere, castor oil. Very
well,
good.
You're about to take off, so we better let you go. So all the best out there, and now I know not to gasp every time you turn the throttle off.
To do that.
Yeah, okay. Thank God we know
Very
that
good.
now. Thank you.
Take care.
Welcome back to Central News. Now joining me now is Ben and Val, and Ben is a World War II veteran, a pilot. So what planes did you fly in World War II?
What planes?
Yeah.
Oh, of course, here mainly. That was a major plane. We flew a few others, but the only British fighter I flew was Hurricane.
And what were Corsairs, what were they known for? Can you tell us a little bit about the plane?
The Japanese called them the Whispering Giant. They didn't make much noise. Not like those ones. No, they were quite unique. But the Americans didn't like them. They checked out the Hellcat and the Corsair, and both were designed the same. They both had the same motor. But the Americans tried them out on the carriers and was killing people right, left, and centre. They didn't get the lack of landing them on. And they opted for the Hellcat because it had better visibility. And so they took it on about 16 months. We were flying them operational before the Americans. Of course, they eventually found out there was a better plane than the Hellcat. Also, the Hellcat people don't say that, but we do. Yeah, it was though. It was. I had a friend who was a test pilot for the British Navy, and he tested the Hellcat and the Corsair and the Japanese Zero, the first one they captured and built up. That Japanese one was here a few years ago. It was flying here.
So what have you come to see here today then? I mean, does it bring back memories seeing all these planes?
Oh yes, what I'm hoping to see is the Corsair. But all of them always interesting. Flying many different planes and didn't get the opportunity.
Now, watching those World War I planes that are 100 years old, would you ever hop in one of the triplanes or the Camel?
Oh, I would love to. Yes, I would love to. But I need to be told how to fly it there.
So you were a pilot for 45 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And so after the war, what did you do?
I went back to flying in 1985 for a while. My first wife died, and I gave it away. Couldn't afford it anyway.
And Val, what have you come to see today at the air show?
Well, just everything really. I like seeing the World War I planes. I think they're marvellous, so manoeuvrable, and they're such fun. The high-powered modern planes are lovely too, exciting, but there's something magical about World War I planes.
Temperate flyers, the Corsair will be flying here today, I presume. I know him reasonably well, and he was flying that Meteor. Was it Meteor? Anyway, he's a very experienced test pilot and exhibition pilot. He was flying around England and Europe in a company, Brit watch company, sponsored them. And they were flying all over Europe, even Russia, I believe. And he lives in Connecticut, isn't he?
Well, now you're getting me excited about the Corsair. I can't wait to see it either. Well, thank you very much, and I can't wait to see it. Welcome back to Central News. Joining me now is Keith, who is the man behind it all. So you're the display director.
I am the display director, the flying display director, yes.
How stressful's today been then?
No stress really. It's been quite a good day. We're used to air shows and there's nothing we can do about the weather. So we just have to plan around what we've got available, and it's worked out surprisingly well, really.
I think so. I mean, I would have had no idea that, you guys had cancelled some things and changed it up a bit.
Yes, well, that's right. We've managed to fly everything today, almost. I think the 3 aerobatic displays we didn't want to fly because they need altitude. We haven't had that. We've had good weather for what we've done, and all the pilots are very experienced and they're very keen to display, and we've been happy with it. Very happy with it, in fact.
Now, you fly the Corsair behind us here.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the Corsair, the plane itself.
This is a very historic airplane, this Corsair. It's an ex-Royal New Zealand Air Force One, flew during the war, and we're lucky to have it back in New Zealand. It's owned by an American chap who keeps it here for us, which is very kind of him, and I'm very lucky I get to fly it. And I've been flying this particular airplane since around 1994. So I'm well used to it now. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous airplane.
What are they like to fly compared to other planes?
Surprisingly not that difficult, because young fellows went off to war at 18, 19 years old in them, They were a handful, but the pilots then were well trained. And any pilot with the right sort of training would have no difficulty at all. I mean, almost every pilot here today could hop into that and fly it.
Wow. So what were they used for in the war, mainly?
In the war, they were used as fighters. You can see on the front of on the wings here, they've got the cannons, and they were used purely, really, as an air-to-air fighter. Our Air Force used them mainly for ground attack, which means they had bombs and guns, and they were strafing and dropping bombs and things, up in the islands.
It reminds me a bit of an infomercial, like it folds away for your ease under the bed kind of thing. Well, I mean, the wings actually fold up. Why?
It was. Well, it was designed really as a carrier aeroplane to fly off aircraft carriers during World War II. And of course they wanted to put them down below the deck into the holds, and they wanted to put a lot on the decks, so they folded the wings up. Simple as that, really.
I mean, how many planes do that?
They still do them. The modern jet fighters on carriers, most of them have wing folding ability. And during the war, there's probably a dozen or so different fighters did that.
Wow. So what have you got planned for the rest of the day? Are you still going to do the big finale?
No, we're not. No, the weather's not really good enough for that. We'd love to do that because that's really quite the enjoyment of the day, really. But sadly, the weather's not conducive to that, so we're just going to say no.
Do you think it's been a good day so far anyway?
Oh, and it really has. Yeah, it's been a wonderful show. It really has. It's we've been very lucky with the weather. It's not quite as forecast, and everyone's flown very, very well and been very professional, so I'm proud of them.
Welcome back to Central News, and joining me now are 2 pilots, John and Benny, and they've just flown this Sea Sprite. Is it a Sea Sprite? Is that right? What's the name of it again?
Yeah, correct. It's a Command Sea Sprite.
So tell me a little bit about this aircraft itself.
So this is a Command Sea Sprite helicopter. It's operated by the Royal New Zealand Navy, and we've got 5 of them. They're based up in Whenuapai, which is northwest of Auckland. They're it's quite a unique squadron, so it's number 6 squadron. It's actually an Air Force squadron, so these helicopters are operated by the Royal New Zealand Navy but maintained by Air Force engineers.
Why is that?
So Air Force are the experts at maintaining it. We'll get a lot of maintenance personnel through from other squadrons as well. So everyone rotates around. Whereas the Navy side of things and the warfare and tactics, it's better to have people that are planning on being at sea for a long time and staying on the aircraft. So it's a little bit debatable, but it works quite well actually.
Now, you guys have just flown it. The flight that I watched was pretty scary. I mean, do you get nervous going up there and doing kind of these shows?
Benny does. Yeah.
Yeah, so particularly on a day like today when there's lots of people watching and things, it definitely gets the heart rate up a bit. And the kind of flying that we're doing today as well is quite interesting flying. So yeah, you do get a bit nervous, but it's good fun. It's all part of it, yeah.
So it's not your average flight that you guys did today, is it?
It's not the average sort of flight, certainly not. Mostly we're out over the water, operating off ships. However, all of the manoeuvres that we were doing are actually pretty basic manoeuvres that we practice on a reasonably regular basis. So we work out for the air shows for sure, and it gets signed off and authorised. But it's just putting them all together for the day.
Those are basic manoeuvres.
Yeah, basic is probably the wrong word. They're regular manoeuvres that we practice and train for.
Wow. So what actually goes into the aircraft itself? Is it, what's the kind of engine behind it and that kind of thing?
So it's actually got two engines, as you can probably see. So both engines put out sort of a maximum of about 1,700 horsepower. So it's quite a powerful helicopter, which is great. That means that if we have one of the engines fail, we can safely fly it on the other engine alone. A standard crew is one pilot up front in the right-hand seat and one co-pilot or navigator. And they operate all the weapons and those sort of systems. And then we have also a helicopter crewman in the back. We've brought a slightly non-standard crew down today because I'm a pilot as well. So we've got a pilot and a co-pilot, and then our crewman Nathan.
And so, what kind of military arsenal are we talking on one of these usually?
Military arsenal, as in weapons. The main purpose of it is anti-surface warfare. So we carry the Maverick missile. We can take up to 2 of them on the weapon pylons. You can see them there. And the other main warfare role is anti-subsurface, so submarine warfare. And for that, we carry the torpedo and depth charge. That's the guts. We also carry a machine gun for things like anti-piracy or surface surveillance potentially.
So how long does it take to learn how to fly one of these things?
So I've been in for just over 8 years now, and I first touched a Sea Sprite a couple of years ago. So it took me 6 years to get there. And I flew 4 aircraft before I came onto the Sea Sprite, so it does take a while.
And how long have you been flying them?
I've had two different postings or stints on the Sea Sprites, and both of them been about 3 years, with various things in between.
And has the technology changed much in the last 3 years on the Sea Sprites?
The only thing we've upgraded, and that was probably just before 3 years ago, is the infrared camera on the front. There's technology changes all the time, and we do our best to keep up with it, but it's no major changes.
Well, thank you very much, and all the best with getting her home. Joining me now is Graham, who's actually a pilot of a Mustang. So what is a Mustang? When was it used?
The Mustang was towards the second part of the Second World War. It was really designed to meet the requirement for a long-range bomber escort. As you probably know, the bombers were equipped with many guns all over them, upper guns, tail guns, undergunners, and they took a big hit. The bombers in the early stages of the war were being shot down in large numbers. The problem was that the fighters just couldn't go far enough. They didn't have the fuel, they didn't have the speed, the range, and the Mustang overcame all that, and that's where its forte was. Long range, 6 big guns, just the trick.
It's kind of one of the more famous names, isn't it, from the war?
It is, yeah. The Mustang, it was certainly, at the end of the war, it would be the weapon of choice.
Now, what's it like to fly one?
Dangerous. No, it's like all big tail draggers, it's a bit of a handful on takeoff and on landing, which tragically comes with every flight. But in the air, it's beautiful, just as smooth as silk, a lovely airplane, a bit like a jet really to handle. I've flown several of them, and it's very nice handling airplane.
How about today's flight? How was it flying with the weather and the wind?
Oh, not that satisfactory. The weather is really quite grubby, but you have to be adaptable. That's just the way it is. You don't get... there are 2 words, barbecue and air show, that'll bring on break a drought. So, this happens all the time. We get used to it.
Did you find it a little bit harder to fly with the wind and everything? Or?
Well, not so much the wind, the low cloud and the poor visibility. You need a good horizon to fly accurately, and there just wasn't that there today. We were in and out of a little flecks of cloud, and it was, you need to really, you need to focus anyway, but even more so.
And what's it like flying a Mustang?
Oh, it's a big buzz. She's a lovely old girl. I've owned it for DME since 1990, so she's sort of part of the family. But yeah, it's lovely. It's just a beautiful airplane. I love it a bit.
Is it different to fly it, compared to some of those other older planes?
Oh yes, yes. The jets are much more harmonised, and of course they've got tricycle undercarriage and nose wheel, wheel on the front, as opposed to the back. All airplanes are different. I mean, I've flown everything from Tiger Moth to 747, so each one of them is totally different, which is good. You don't get confused.
But the Mustang's your favourite?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
For sure.
Well, all the best with the rest of it, because you're actually going to fly again later on in the day.
Yes, we're hoping to do a fighter finale, a formation of half a dozen fighters, so looking forward to that.
Wow, that will be spectacular. I can't wait. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Welcome back to Central News, and joining me now is a little bit of a famous person here. This is Les Munro, who is the last surviving pilot of the Dam Busters raid. So for those who don't know, what is the Dam Busters raid?
The Dam Busters raid represents an operation to breach the principal dams of the Rua, the Mona and the Ada Dam, and then the Sorpi on the 16th, 17th of May 1943. And the raid was as a result of the development of a different type of bomb developed by Barnes Wallis, this aircraft designer and scientist. And as he and his field of endeavour felt that he could perhaps contribute to the war effort by designing a weapon that would be able to be dropped at low level and bounce over the torpedo nets at the dams, the lakes of the two principal dams, the Mona and the Ada, had in them. And so once the permission was given to by the powers that be, and principally the Air Ministry and subsequently Air Marshal of Butch Harris, as he was known, decided that it was decided that Barnes Wallis's concept was feasible and capable of being put into fruition. Squadron 617 Squadron was formed for the specific purpose of attacking the dams, and as a result the two principal dams, the Mona and the Ada, were breached. The third major dam, the Sorpi, suffered some damage but not sufficient to put it out of action. And as a result of that, the success of the breaching of the Mona and the Ada achieved worldwide publicity, and as such the squadron has been long recognised for its efforts on successful attack on the dams on that night.
So after the war, you come home. You must have come home a little bit of a hero. Were you proud of what the squad had done?
Yeah, I've always taken a great deal of pride in the fact that I was a member of 617 Squadron and subsequently served under Lieutenant Leonard Cheshire during his time as squadron leader. And I've always been a great deal of satisfaction in the fact that I was a member of the squadron during Leonard Cheshire's era. But I returned home without any thought that I was any more of a hero than many other people. Practically everybody that came back was just as much a hero as I was.
Absolutely. Have you ever flown since then?
Sorry?
Have you flown since the war?
No, yes, I did. I flew a Tiger Moth in Gisborne after I first returned from the war, but only for about 5 hours. Then I gave it up any thought of continuing flying. I got married and I wasn't able to keep up a home, a marriage, and as well as fly, so I'd go flying away on my own account. Yep.
Gave it up for love, eh?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I suppose that's right. Could be right. Yes.
And so, I mean, what does it, when you see these planes flying at the air show like this, does it bring up that nostalgia, or you want to get back out there?
Yes, it does bring feelings of sort of remembering the days when I flew myself. But aviation has advanced terrifically in the last 70 years since the Dams raid, and I come to air shows with the objective of seeing modern aircraft putting through their paces and displaying their attributes and for the benefit of the people that come to see them.
How far we've come since the war, I guess.
Yes, that's right, yes.
So, speaking of the modern aircraft, what about the 100-year-old, like the Camel and the triplane? Would you ever hop in one of those?
I suppose if the opportunity occurs, I would. But yes, I have a great deal of admiration for Peter Jackson and his firm that builds these, constructs these World War I aircraft. I think it's a great tribute to him, and I suppose he's proceeding with his own dream of what he would like to see, it's the development of this particular type of aircraft as we see today, the 4 of them, is really a tribute to his perseverance and tenacity in pursuing his personal objective. I think all credit to him.
Well, thank you very much, Les, and we better let you go because Les is actually signing things. That's how famous he is nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for joining me tonight on Central News as we commemorate Anzac Day. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.